Long time no see. I know that I disappeared for a really long time. We started back up at work and it completely threw off my recording schedule. So lots of sporadic posting is going to be happening now. I know I missed a ton of unboxings. I apologize for that, but we're going to start back up with September boxes, and those are going to be huge unboxings at the end of the month. So September might happen in the next month, just depending on, so in October, just depending on like when I get the book boxes in. But yeah, recording time has like disappeared, and I finally feel as though I've settled into a new routine with my work schedule back on. So I wanted to come and record the challenge that I am doing with my friend for spooky season. So this is not my challenge. This is a challenge that's been created by Covers with Cassidy. I'm going to link the original video below so you can go watch Cassidy's video. You can see all of the different components of the challenge and how to participate. But I'm doing this challenge with my friend Kelly Lynn Colby, and I'm super excited. I wanted to go through the books that I have selected for my spooky season challenge TBR, seasonal spooky challenge. I will give you guys a really quick synopsis of the challenge, but the full video is going to be with Cassidy. So basically for each of the 8 settings, you have to pick one book that goes with each one. It cannot be a repeat book. Once you've got all 8 books, then you're going to go down to the unlocking in part 2, and you're going to match each of those books to each of those unlockings in phase 2. And again, it can't repeat, so you kind of have to like bounce around and maybe leave one book off, choose a different book, things like that. I had to kind of move my list around quite a bit. And then once you've done that and you get over to part 3, you have to match a book to each of the cover options. Now, the difference between part 3 is that it doesn't have to be one of the 8 books above, but if it is one of the 8 books above, then, you know, you don't have to read an extra book. So I filled out everything on part 3 except for tech. Really struggling with tech. But let's go ahead and go through my TBR. Our first setting is urban, and for urban, I am reading So Thirsty by Rachel Harrison. This book essentially has 2 friends who go to Las Vegas in order to celebrate one of their birthdays. The one whose birthday we're celebrating, our FMC, is dealing with kind of this turmoil of the infidelity of her husband. She thought she was going to get a quiet birthday week, and instead her friend has planned some crazy, outrageous things that have some pretty eternal consequences. So within So Thirsty, we get vampires, and I am so excited. On the unlocking stage, I am matching this with On Somebody Else's TBR because it's on Cassidy's TBR, so I was like, ooh, that's an easy one. And then on the cover stage, so stage 3, I have matched this with Blood. Okay, this is the part where I tell you guys that I am kind of cheating a little bit in order to make this challenge like more fun for me. And Cassidy even said in her video, she was like, you don't have to stick with this exactly. I know for a fact that the summer camp trope is not one of my favorites, but I do love dark academia. So I did go ahead and remove this category and put in my own. If you want to do the original challenge, Cassidy has summer camp here for the setting. My dark academia setting will be fulfilled with Immortal Dark by Tigest Gurma. This book follows our FMC who enters a university after her sister goes missing. She's trying to figure out what has happened here and suspects that her mentor, who is a vampire, has something to do with it, gets kind of entrapped within this centuries-old curse and realizes that her and her sister might be at the center of it. For phase 2, I have matched this with young adult, and for phase 3, I have matched this with hands. For the isolated setting, I have matched this with Haunting of Hill House, and I'm trying to remember. I think that once they're within the house, it is an isolated setting. Like, they're not getting out and nobody else is getting in, which is why I have put this here. I'm so excited to read The Haunting of Hill House. I absolutely adore the Mike Flanagan adaptation, and I have read snippets and pieces of The Haunting of Hill House, but I haven't read it all the way through, so I was like, this is the perfect challenge in order to finally read this book that I really need to read and that has been on my TBR for ages. So isolated is The Haunting of Hill House with Shirley Jackson. In phase 2, I have connected this to novella because it is around 200 words. The audiobook is only like 7 hours. And then in phase 3, I stretched this a little bit because I do know that the house is like technically the weapon that's psychologically being used against them, but I'm pretty sure weapon's supposed to be like, I don't know, a sword. whatever. It's the weapon, the tool that's being used against them. It's fine. I can always switch that out later. I'll be reading a ton of books and I know some of them do have a weapon on the front. It's just, it was easier for me to compile it by using the books that I already had. I am so going to pronounce this wrong, but for my small town setting, I have The Last Witch in Edinburgh, and this is by Mariel Thompson. Again, I realize small town is probably supposed to mean like an American rural town, but my dog's trying to play fetch with me. I went ahead and went Scottish small town, and I don't even know that Edinburgh is necessarily a small town, but this takes place in like the 1800s, I think, which at that time it would have been smaller. I'm really stretching some of these because I know I'm getting these books in on my audio. This book follows our FMC as she is evading actually being hunted down by witch hunters, and we're talking about the period where any woman could have been classified as a witch. Our FMC actually is indeed a witch within this book, though. She finds solace and haven with an apothecary, but disaster still strikes. And so she spends the next 2 centuries in hiding when she comes to a point where she has to make a decision of whether she's going to keep running or if she's going to stand up for what she believes in. In phase 2, I have matched this with Book You Didn't Buy. And then in phase 3, I have matched this with water. It's probably kind of hard to see on the cover, but there is definitely water on the pavement that she's walking on, or she's walking on water. For our southern setting, I have This Cursed House by Del Sandine. This is a debut novel by this author, and this is essentially about, it's also set, it's a historical one as well. I think it's also set in the 1800s. But our FMC, who can see ghosts and is a medium, leaves Chicago in order to work for a well-to-do family in New Orleans. Love it when we've got spirits in New Orleans happening in a book. She's working for a black family that is white passing, who looks down on her because of her darker skin, but they believe that her inherent gift can break the curse that has been set upon their family. And the more that our FMC learns about this curse, the more she realizes that she might be more involved than she even realized. In phase 2, I have attached this to Diverse Rep, and in phase 3, I have attached this to Window. For the haunted house setting, I have Model Home by Rivers Solomon. With this novel, we start off kind of in the prologue with a black family that has moved into a neighborhood that only has white families. After they move in, they realize that their house is most assuredly haunted, or like has something going on with it. Despite this fact, they stay. And we pick up in the present with the kids returning to this home after they have left, because they're adults now, due to the fact that their parents have died. And so we get this reunion in the house with all of the supernatural and the kids kind of backtracking to what happened when they were younger, and then also trying to solve and figure out how their parents passed. This novel deals a lot with rooted racism within the South, and specifically within suburban neighborhoods. For phase 2, I have paired this with New Release because it does come out in October, and then for phase 3, I have paired this with Eyeball. For coastal setting, I picked The Third Wife of Faraday House by B.R. Myers. We've got another one set in the 1800s. I don't know. I don't have any answers for you. But in this one, we have our FMC who is trying to find the perfect suitor in order to be married off to and ends up in scandal. Enter Mr. Graves, who has been widowed twice. He has just lost his second wife, and so he comes, offers his hand, and it is accepted because she's in a scandal. So she gets swept off to his Gothic coastal home, where she finds out that wife number 2 is not, in fact, dead yet. And so in order to survive, she realizes that she's going to need to figure out what exactly is happening at Faraday House, and she does this with the help of the second wife. I've paired this novel with audiobook in phase 2, and then in phase 3 I paired it with animals because, and again, I don't know if you can really see all that well, but there are animals kind of all over the frame of the cover. And for our last setting, I cheated again. So originally in Cassidy's challenge, it's in the woods or in the forest, in the trees. I have changed it to In the Bog because my book is The Bog Wife by Kay Chronister. This is another story that hits on big themes of family, and I actually think it's going to be multi POV because in the synopsis, like all 4 or 5 siblings have a little sentence about them. But the gist of the story is that there is this family in the Appalachian bogs who run a cranberry bog and have this like pact or something to sacrifice their patriarch in order to have the bog give them what they're calling the bog wife that basically produces the next in line for the family. And our conflict arises when the bog says, I don't think so, you're not getting a wife this year. And so every single one of the siblings has a different way of how they think they should or should not solve this problem. I think it's going to be very culty, but the way that this is going to be culty, I am very excited about. For phase 2, I have attached this to new author, and in phase 3, there was nothing that I could really attach this to, so this one didn't go on my phase 3, and that's why I still have that tech option left. Alright guys, I'm so excited for spooky season. I will be reading more books than what is on this TBR, but this TBR really made me think about novels that I might have set aside and not read, but just kind of like told other people were releasing, and instead now I'm super excited to step out of my comfort zone with some of these and add them to my TBR, which is the whole point of the challenge, is to kind of like push you to read something that you might not have picked up originally. So this is my TBR. I cannot wait to see what Kelly has on her TBR because that's the friend that I'm doing this with. And then if you're interested and you want to get the template and everything like that, I have linked, like I said, Covers with Cassidy, her video below that introduces the challenge so that you can also participate with us. If you are participating, or if you have other recommendations, or if this just made you excited about books that are coming out for spooky season, go ahead and let us know what you're going to be reading below because I always love to see what's on everybody else's TBR.